Hey, have you ever tried using a wide bass sound in your drops like these? If so, then you probably know that they can lose all their power in mono, and getting them to sit right with your kick is even harder. But luckily there's a simple sound trick we can use to fix all of that. Let's get into it. For this tutorial I'm going to use Serum 2, but any other synth that allows you to edit your oscillator wavetable works. Like Vital for example. Also, since we're working with bass sounds in this video, I would recommend watching this with some headphones on, especially if you're watching on your phone. First I'm going to create a regular Reese bass. So I'm keeping the default saw oscillator, increasing the unison to 5, and I'll also leave the detune at the default 0.25 value. I'll also add a filter just to tame the highs a little and make things easier on our ears. That's it. That's our basic but quite nice and powerful sounding Reese bass. So what's the issue with this sound? If you're using a Reese bass like this, or any other type of wide bass sound, there are typically two issues you'll run into. The first issue is monocompatibility. If we take this Reese bass and I turn down the width, you'll notice how the sub loses its power. Not only that, but if we look at an EQ, you can literally see that weird pumping effect we get where the bass sounds nice and full for a second but then goes back to sounding weak again. If we quickly compare that to a pure sine wave, it doesn't matter if we're in mono or stereo, it's nice, powerful and stable whenever we play it. So, how do we fix this? It's quite simple. Let's open up a new instance of Serum for this. I'm going to add the filter first, and before adding any unison, we're going to dive straight into the wavetable editor. Now, if you're a sound designer, these will look familiar. But if you're not, this whole window probably looks like a bunch of gibberish. But all we need to do here is change one thing. This window up here is the FFT area, and all these lines are the harmonics of our saw wavetable. I don't want this video to be about harmonics, so to keep this as simple as possible, imagine each line here as being a sine wave. And if you align all these individual sine waves in this pattern, you get a saw wave. We can open an EQ and just sweep through this saw wave with a sharp bandpass filter, and you'll hear how each harmonic is a sine wave. Also, if we go through the default wavetables below, you'll see how the harmonics look for each wavetable. The sine wavetable only has one harmonic, for example. A triangle wave looks like this, and a square wave looks like this. All we want to do in here is remove the first harmonic on our saw wave. This one's called the fundamental, and it's the one that gives our saw all its power. So if I play a note and turn it down, you'll instantly hear how our saw sounds much weaker. What we'll do from here is use the weak saw wave and turn that into our Reese bass. I'm going to do the same thing and turn the unison to 5 and leave the detune knob where it is, just like the first Reese bass we made. Next we'll add a second oscillator here. We're going to use this one as our fundamental. As I mentioned, all harmonics are essentially just sine waves, so let's change this oscillator to a sine wave as well. As you noticed, with this second oscillator enabled, our Reese bass sounds full and powerful again. If you're wondering why we've removed the fundamental just to add it back, the answer is here, the unison value. What unison does is quite simple. It essentially just doubles our oscillator, in this case 5 times, and detunes each one slightly. That's what's creating that wide sound. But that's also what kills your monocompatibility. So we separated the fundamental to keep it clean and centered. No unison, no phase issues. If I turn our master to mono and I play both respaces we made, you'll quickly notice how this one retains all its power and the first one doesn't. The difference is crazy, right? Using this trick also makes mixing these types of wide basses with your kick much easier. Since this is not a mixing tutorial, I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but mixing your kick with a bass that has a static phase is much easier. Phase is essentially the starting point of a waveform. If we look at our sine wave through an oscilloscope, we can see how every time I play a note, the sine wave starts at a different point. But if I go back to Serum and I turn this rand value, which stands for random, down to 0, this is what we get. This makes mixing your sub with your kick so much easier since you can phase align both of them. But again, that topic probably deserves its own separate video. But yeah, that's another benefit when you use this trick. And if you're wondering if you can't just turn down the random phase value on a regular respace, the answer is technically yes, but in reality no. If we quickly do that on our regular respace, you'll notice that this introduces a weird sweeping effect that sounds almost like a laser. And if we turn that into mono, yeah, I don't think that needs an explanation. That sounds like a mess. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you can create a nice wide bass sound that's also mono compatible and easy to mix. Or you can use this sound design trick to make any of your existing bass presets mono compatible if they aren't already. Bye for now.